This morning, Vanity Fair dropped an article showing several new screenshots and a bunch of behind-the-scenes info for the new Lord of the Rings show coming out on Amazon Prime later this year. So let's check it out. So I think that's, Galadriel, played by Morfydd Clark. I'm going to butcher a lot of names, so let's just get that out of the way right now. I'm sorry ahead of time. Maybe Galadriel's a stealth assassin in this one, and she's sneaking up on her target. Probably not. Exclusive. Amazon Lord of the Rings series rises inside the Rings of Power. Honestly, I like the name. I think it's a cool name. We're going to be talking about, I assume, how the rings are made, and maybe see Sauron's battle where he gets his finger chopped off. I don't know. One show to rule them all. The first look at a billion-dollar saga set thousands of years before J.R.R. Tolkien's legendary trilogy. Galadriel's world is a raging sea, far from the wise, ethereal, elven queen that Cate Blanchett brought to Peter Jackson's acclaimed films. The Galadriel played by Morfydd Clark in Amazon's upcoming series, The Lord of the Rings of Power, is thousands of years younger, as angry and brash as she is clever, and certain that evil is looming closer than anyone realizes, just off of that alone. So we're getting a much younger Galadriel. I know a lot of people were complaining that the voiceover for the teaser when they showed the name of the show, the voiceover of Galadriel sounded too childlike or too young, but she's literally thousands of years younger, so I feel like it makes sense. She hasn't reached her Cate Blanchett point yet. She's still basically, I don't want to say a child, but a very young person. Elf. Very young elf. By episode 2, her warning set her adrift, literally and figuratively, until she's struggling for survival on a raft in the storm-swept sundering seas alongside a mortal castaway named Halbrand. Charlie Vickers, who is a new character introduced in the show. Galadriel is fighting for the future. Halbrand is running from the past. Is there going to be romance? Is that what they're getting at? Two people just fighting for the future and running from the past, and Their entwined destinies are just two of the stories woven together for a TV series. Their entwined destinies, huh? I feel like, so there's going to be romance, right? And then he has to die, I assume. So by the end of season 5, Halbrand is dead if they had a romance. Or maybe not, I don't know. Who knows? If it works, could be a global phenomenon. If it falls short, it could become a cautionary tale for anyone who, to quote J.R.R. Tolkien, delves too greedily and too deep. If this flops, that'll be tough. That'll be tough. I hope it doesn't. Hopefully it's good. That's just fingers crossed, man. Just hope it's good. Amazon show, which debuts on Prime Video on September 2nd. Oh, we do have an exact release date. Nice. Is based not on a Tolkien novel per se, but the vast backstory he laid out in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. 5 seasons will likely cost the studio well over $1 billion. This really better be good. While Jackson is not connected to the project, his movies, as well as their spiritual successor, Game of Thrones, proved that there is a massive audience for immersive fantasy. Of course, many have tried to capture that same audience, and few have survived or thrived. Well, okay, so Game of Thrones was great in that even if you didn't like fantasy, you can get into it. Like, I had a lot of friends and family that don't care about fantasy at all, but they love the show because of all the politics, and the magic was pretty minimal. I feel like that's a more casual audience than what Lord of the Rings has. Lord of the Rings, of course, has a massive audience, but that's, I feel like, a little more hardcore, high fantasy. We expect dwarves and elves and dragons and all kinds of stuff. Alright, so this image right here, I think would make an awesome album cover. Like, there's just explosions in the background and she's just walking away. I mean, it could be a big fire that, maybe, is that like a smith maybe behind them? Or is it, are those people running? I'm not really sure what's happening, but it looks cool. She's got some armor on, she's got a sword. This is Galadriel's Joan of Arc phase, I guess. She's gonna be a warrior princess and go fight stuff. Could be fun. Okay. Because of Bezos' immense wealth, the Rings of Power is actually less of a financial risk than it is a reputational one. Amazon needs to definitively make the case that it can produce giant prestige shows, and with this series, it's courting the additional danger of amending and elaborating on the canon of a beloved storyteller. Taking on a story as beloved and well-known and just amazing as Lord of the Rings, the movies were also a masterpiece in their own right. Even the music for the movies by itself is just amazing. The amount of pressure that the showrunners are probably on to make this, it just has to be good. Just please be good. Ugh. The showrunners, Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne, are agonizingly aware of the pressure. I bet. Yeah. Their series will juggle 22 stars and multiple storylines from deep within the dwarf mines of the Misty Mountains to the high politics of the elven kingdom of Lindon and the humans' powerful Atlantis-like island, Numenor. All this will center eventually around the incident that gives the trilogy its name, the forging of the rings, says McKay. Rings for the elves, rings for the dwarves, rings for men, and the one ring Sauron used to deceive them all. That's not the quote. That's not the line from the book. It's the story of the creation of all those powers, where they came from and what they did to each of those races. There's so much potential for a story like this, right? I mean, seeing how it corrupts and destroys all these kingdoms and all these people, and there's so much potential to see so much chaos and destruction and just and seeing all the realms of men just get destroyed because of these rings. Please be good. Can we come up with the novel Tolkien never wrote and do it as the mega event series that could only happen now? And I think that's going to scare some people when they say, can we come up with the novel Tolkien never wrote and do it as a mega event series that can only happen now? I feel like that's going to scare some hardcore fans. They're going to be like, oh no, they're straying away from Tolkien. And mega event series, which mega events, like if they have huge moments like big red wedding size moments or massive battles and things like that, a spectacle. I think casual fantasy fans will love it. And I think even more dedicated fans of the Lord of the Rings series will probably also love it. But I'm sure there's the book purists out there who are going to be like, that it didn't happen that way, so I hate it, it's garbage, throw it away. And sure, I mean, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it, I don't know. Me personally, I don't care if it's exactly how things happen, like in the Silmarillion. I've only really skimmed over that. Before the show comes out, I need to sit and like read front to back the entire, history of Middle-earth. Haven't done that yet, but I've read the Lord of the Rings books and seen the movies, of course, but I understand it's an adaptation. So of course, there's going to be changes. I expect that. Really, the only thing I care about, will it feel like Middle-earth, and will it be good on a scene-by-scene basis? I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? If it's good, people will love it. If it's bad, people will hate it, no matter what. So, hope it's good. On the set in New Zealand back in March 2020, Morfydd was a few days into being Galadriel, which is probably terrifying. Yeah, I mean, she had to follow up Cate Blanchett, who was perfect in that role, so that's not surprising. She's in water, there's a lot of visual effects, there's music and light. But despite the momentous scene in front of them, the show's crew were glued to their phones. Wow, you guys can't even pay attention to your own show. That's not a good look, guys. Let's see. Within 45 minutes, word spread that in nearby Australia, Tom Hanks had contracted COVID. The NBA had canceled its season, and the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. We're all just going, oh my god, what are we going to do? We're going to have to shut everything down, says McKay. The panic metastasized, setting off other anxieties, big and small. It was terrifying. Oh my god, is anyone going to understand what we're trying to do here? Is this way too ambitious? We have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. Can you imagine going back to such a beloved world and facing the high bar of Peter Jackson movies? Can you imagine going back to such a beloved world and facing the high bar of the Peter Jackson movies? We were all the time very aware of the massive expectations. I bet. How could you not? But one by one, the crew put down their phones. Everyone was crowding around the monitor as they're doing this close-up where Galadriel's face fills the screen and she cries. And she decides, I have to fight, says McKay. As soon as the scene ended, the soundstage erupted in cheers. It was a perfect example of how Tolkien and Middle-earth have a way of finding you, even in the darkest and most uncertain moments, says Payne. Sounds like a nice, powerful moment for them. And if you get anything, I feel like, from Lord of the Rings, it's hope. It's, you have the smallest, weakest person in all the land destroying the greatest, most powerful evil. And stories like that fill people with hope. Whatever other chaos might befall them, they finally felt they were on the right path. The first 3 episodes, which VF has seen, suggest they were. Okay. The show is a lavish, compelling mix of palace intrigue, magic, warfare, and mythology. And there were enough mysteries to power 1,000 podcasts. Nice. Some characters will be familiar, and they will be the initial attraction as viewers watch their legendary fates unfurl, but the entirely new faces may ultimately become even more involving, since their destinies are literally unwritten. Yeah, that's a big thing. For these unknown characters, who knows? There's so much room for just them to do whatever. It's going to be interesting, hopefully. Again, hope it's good. Owain Arthur as Prince Durin IV, Prince of the bustling subterranean realm of Khazad-dûm. Let's see. Okay, you got your standard dwarf look. Okay, this looks like a typical dwarf you would see straight out of the Lord of the Rings movies or the Hobbit movies. Okay, doesn't look bad or anything. The dwarven princess Disa, played by Sophia Namvit. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Standing at Khazad-dûm's entrance. Okay, so right away, first thing you noticed, no beard. There's no beard there, so apparently Gimli was a liar. And that's what we've learned today. That or they kind of forgot about the beard thing, that all the dwarves had beards. But that's just whatever. Is this the same entrance that we saw? Let's see. Is that the same as this? I think so. Right? I'm a little hazy on the details, but I believe that's the same thing. Same cave, right? And then we have the Sylvan Elf, Arendor, played by Ismael Cruz Cordova, is a character who's been created for the series. Okay, so we got a new character who's an elf. He does not have long hair. But again, minor detail. I like this armor. Reminds me very Green Man inspired. Whether it's like the Green Knight or the Green Man from many different fables and tales and whatnot. But it's cool. Cool looking armor. Previously, this part of the story was most famous as ruins. After the success of his 1937 children's story, The Hobbit, Tolkien turned his attention back to the volume of Middle-earth history, which his publishers rejected. A more complete version was published posthumously as The Silmarillion. So, as the Second World War of his lifetime raged around him, Tolkien crafted an adventure about beings from very different societies putting aside their differences to stamp out an overpowering evil. This, of course, was The Lord of the Rings. Okay. Yeah, this is based mostly on parts of the Silmarillion, which I've read Lord of the Rings, and I've skimmed over the Silmarillion, but now I need to go back and actually read it from start to finish. This is an alternate version of the Titanic where they both fit on the dresser. No. Let's see. Galadriel and Halbrand. Charlie Vickers meet in dire circumstances. This is how they meet? Nice. Yeah, it's definitely romance, right? I mean, come on. They're gonna be in love and he's gonna die. Or something. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. Definitely not me. After the publication of The Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, in July and November of 1954 respectively, readers became obsessive. Most people want more and better maps. Me. I'm most people. Yes. More and better maps, please. Now this is young Elrond, right? The half-elf Elrond, Robert Aramayo, is a politically ambitious young leader. I want to see political intrigue with Elrond behind the scenes making moves, doing stuff, backstabbing people, rising to power. I'm going to skip over the bits where they just talk about the history and what it's based on. You could read the whole article. I'll link it down below. We'll just talk about some of the new info we've got. It would have been nice if they had access to everything and could even frame a story with Frodo, or not Frodo, I guess, because he went to the Grey Havens. It'd be nice if they had the rights to the entire story, and then you can frame it like Sam retelling old events or retelling old stories or something to a younger generation. That could be some cool stuff. But, oh well. Looks like the first season cost roughly $462 million for the first season alone. And let's see, by contrast, Amazon's recent fantasy series, The Wheel of Time, reportedly cost $80 million a season. Wow. So it better look really good. It better look like movie quality good. Because, I mean, let's see, how much did Lord of the Rings cost to make? The Fellowship of the Ring cost $93 million. $462 million. It was like 20 years ago, so there's inflation and things like that. But still, $462 million for the first season alone. Like I said, it better be movie quality. I'm hopeful, very hopeful. Some more romance. Okay, there's the new elf, and who else is this? Bronwyn, played by Nazanin Baniadi, in the village of Tirharad. Well, this looks like a cool shot. That's a nice tree. We got some stones. We've got a typical village-looking setting here. Okay. Amazon chose two unlikely newcomers. McKay and Payne are high school friends from Northern Virginia who have been writing in Hollywood together for 13 years. Okay. The Rings of Power is their first credited IMDb listing. They know it's astounding to them too. Wow. So they're newcomers, but not really. They've been working, doing something, hopefully writing related. They've been writing in Hollywood together for 13 years. Okay, they got experience. Interesting. Can you imagine if this was your first big job, being a showrunner for Lord of the Rings, the TV show? I mean, it's Rings of Power, but still, wow. When they pitched the show to the Amazon executives, they felt like hobbits, Payne said. We felt like two very small people in a very big world who had just been entrusted with something that meant so much to so many different people. The showrunners found themselves quoting Frodo's famous line from the end of The Fellowship of the Ring. Patrick and I will often look at each other in challenging moments of the show and say, "I'm glad you're with me, Sam." He's Sam, McKay adds. Just kidding, I'm Sam. Everybody wants to be Sam. Nobody wants to deal with the harsh reality of Frodo's life after he had destroyed the One Ring. But that's a story for another time. He's got the best hair products. You could just tell. Elrond and Galadriel are reunited in the majestic elven kingdom of Lindon. That's a pretty looking background. Some elves back there, nice. Everything looks so golden and majestic. He really does have the best hair care products, though. Game of Thrones co-executive producer Brian Cogman stepped in as an advisor to help McKay and Payne get the project off the ground. Okay. Nice. And veteran filmmaker J.A. Bayona, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, established the tone of the series by directing the first 2 episodes. So they got some help. I think anybody who helped produce Game of Thrones can at least understand what they need to do as far as the scope of the world and putting it all together. Alright, inside one of the village huts. Nazanin Baniadi's Bronwyn, I probably didn't say any of those words right, is a single mother and healer, seen here in her apothecary in the Middle-earth Southlands. Okay, she's just in here making her herbs and healing stuffs. Looks like a very believable healer's hut or house. Let's see. Yeah, it has been very secretive, which is why I'm excited just to get this article from Vanity Fair and hopefully the trailer on Super Bowl Sunday. But they have been very tight-lipped about this. I guess that's because somebody gave an unsanctioned interview and then was released from the show. I'm sure it's hard if you work on the show and fans were constantly like, tell us what's going on. This guy they have cameramen in Middle-earth now, I guess. What if this was a character? Let's see, these are giant tusks that they're wearing, I think? Director J.A. Bayona points the way for 2 nomadic hunters wandering the fields of Middle-earth. Nice. He's helping the hunting party. After news broke that Amazon had hired an intimacy coordinator for its New Zealand set, some fans feared that the production might have lost sight of what makes Tolkien Tolkien. My worry would be if it becomes a Game of Thrones in the Second Age. Of course, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings definitely have different feels to them, for sure. Will there be Westerosi levels of violence and sex in Amazon's Middle-earth? In short, no. McKay says the goal was to make a show for everyone, for kids who are 11, 12, and 13, even though sometimes they might have to pull the blanket up over their eyes if it's a little too scary. Okay, so all the people freaking out that they might have naked people at some point in the show doesn't sound like that's a thing that will happen. Personally, I didn't mind either way. Another concern. Is this series going to put hobbits in the Second Age? In short, so to speak, yes and no. One of the very specific things the texts say is that the hobbits never did anything historic or noteworthy before the Third Age, says McKay. But really, does it feel like Middle-earth if you don't have hobbits or something like hobbits in it? The hobbits' ancestors in this era are called Harfoots. They may not live in the Shire, but they are satisfyingly hobbit adjacent. McKay and Payne have constructed a pastoral Harfoot society that thrives on secrecy and evading detection, so that they can play out Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead story in the margins of the bigger quests. Two lovable, curious Harfoots, played by Megan Richards and Markella Kavanagh, encounter a mysterious lost man whose origin promises to be one of the show's most enticing enigmas. Aragorn. It's got to be Aragorn, right? You're going to have some strange lost man. Okay, considering this takes place thousands of years before, the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit or any of that, it probably can't be Aragorn because he's not thousands of years old. It can't be Aragorn, but man, wouldn't that be funny if they were just like, his name's Longstrider. We'll be like, what? Amazon's series will also broaden the notion of who shares the world of Middle-earth. One original storyline centers on a Sylvan elf named Arendor, played by Ismael Cruz Cordova, who will be the first person of color to play an elf on screen in a Tolkien project. He's involved in a forbidden relationship with Bronwyn, a human village healer played by Nazanin Boniadi, a British actor of Iranian heritage. Elsewhere, a Brit of Jamaican descent, Sir Lenny Henry plays a Harfoot elder, and Sovia Namvit has a scene-stealing role as a dwarven princess named Disa, the latter being the first black woman to play a dwarf in a Lord of the Rings movie, as well as the first female dwarf. It only felt natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like, says Lindsay Weber, executive producer of the series. Tolkien is for everyone. His stories are about fictional races doing their best work when they leave the isolation of their own cultures and come together. I think that's a good point. I see surprisingly, a lot of fans furious that there's people of color in the new Lord of the Rings show. But I think one of the biggest takeaways, or at least one of the great themes of the Lord of the Rings, was that there was this fellowship of people coming from all these different cultures and races, and they come together to take on evil, to destroy the One Ring. And coming together is a good thing. Shocking, I know. But I don't know, I feel like a lot of people miss that part of the Lord of the Rings and are just absolutely furious that they're going to have other races in this one for some reason. Like, can you imagine a version of Lord of the Rings where Gimli walks up to the Fellowship and he's just like, what is it? No, this is woke. Everything's too woke. I want a slept Fellowship. If the Fellowship was all slept, I'd like it. But nope, it's woke. Can you imagine if Legolas walked up to the Fellowship and was like, what is this pandering? Just have elves do it. We're better at everything. Or Frodo and the Hobbits got there and was like, this isn't how it was in the books. You could be mad. You could be mad at whatever you want to be mad at, but for me personally, I don't see any issue with it. And which is a weird thing to say in 2022, like, that I don't mind that people of color are in this movie or in this TV show. It's just such a weird thing to have to say. But let's move on. Or not. When Amazon released photos of its multicultural cast, even without character names or plot details, the studio endured a reflexive attack from trolls, the anonymous online kind. Yeah, I saw that. I've never seen people more angry at a pair of hands before. It's like, relax. Everybody needs to take a breath, chill out a little bit. They're just hands, man. Relax. Everyone needs to go outside and take a breath. You're going to be okay. Obviously, there was going to be push and backlash, but the question is from whom? Who are these people that feel so threatened or disgusted by the idea that an elf is black or Latino or Asian? Even hardcore fans who regard Tolkien's work as sacrosanct will recognize his message of unity. Staying true to that is as important as realizing his vision of places and characters from this little-known era of his fiction. We will finally see the full glory of Khazad-dûm. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong. The cavernous necropolis carved into the Misty Mountains, where in Jackson's The Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf famously bellowed at Balrog, "You shall not pass." The show will explore that kingdom when it is still full of light, food, and music. It'll also bring the elven smith Celebrimbor, Charles Edwards, to life, as his skill with the metals and magic lead to the forging of the rings, and a canny young elven architect and politician named Elrond, Robert Aramayo, will rise to prominence in the mystical capital of Lindon. Another storyline will follow a sailor named Isildur, Maximum Baldry, years before he becomes a warrior and cuts the soul-corrupting ring off Sauron's hand, then falls victim to its powers himself. This guy looks like Aragorn. He just does. There's our Aragorn character. Charlie Vickers as Halbrand, a new character who is a fugitive from his own past. Yeah, he looks like he's considering his whole past right there. You can just see it. Can't wait to see it. Speaking of Sauron, the villain's presence is a major factor throughout the Second Age, culminating in his resurrection as a tyrant. As the show begins, there are only hints of the danger to come. I know people get pissed when you hear comparisons to Game of Thrones, but it'll be like Game of Thrones in that we're waiting for the Walkers, or the Others, or the White Walkers, to come from the north and attack everybody. We'll know that at some point, I think, we're going to see Sauron build up his armies. Maybe at the end, is that possibly what the show ends with? He builds up his armies and we see that big final battle? Maybe? That would be awesome. If that's how the show ends, yes. Ugh. Hopefully. Something big and crazy like that happens. In the novels, the aforementioned things take place over thousands of years, but Payne and McKay have compressed events into a single point in time. It is their biggest deviation from the text, and they know it's a big swing. Yeah. Okay. I guess that's better than jumping through time. Sure. Because the humans would have to, if they jump 200 years, all the human characters are just dead. So it's like they could do that, but I don't know. It makes sense to me. So the showrunners clearly have great respect for Tolkien, but you can't make a 50-hour adaptation without taking creative risks. Expect it. We think the work will eventually speak for itself, Payne says when asked if fan concern and speculation ever unnerves him. Before an orchestra starts, audiences will talk to each other, but then as soon as the music begins, you're in and you're listening to that music. Well said. I think right now that's all of us right now, right? Me, you, just chattering. Like, oh, I'm excited, or a little hesitant because of this, or I'm excited because of this, or, ah, man, just, I hope it's good. And hopefully once the music begins, we all sit back and can appreciate it. Because it's good. Hopefully.